Hi, my name is Eric Young with Pitch IQ. The following is an interview with Alan Jaeger, inventor of the J bands and strong proponent of long toss protocols and throwing program in general. Alan and I spend about 90 minutes delving into all sorts of topics, including long toss, throwing program, breathing protocols, game psychology, game warfare, breathing techniques, and a variety of other subjects. I want to thank Alan for spending the afternoon with me and being so gracious with his time. For more information on Alan's programs, check out jagersports.com. And for any of your pitching and throwing needs, check out pitchiq.org. Thanks so much, and I hope you enjoy. All right, welcome to Pitch IQ. Thanks for joining us today. We have an old friend of mine joining us for the program here, Alan Jaeger, Jaeger Sports, J Bands, entrepreneur, throwing program guru. This guy speaks the same language as I do. He's a mentor, he's a friend, and thanks for joining us, Alan. Appreciate you.
Hey man, when I say thanks for having me on, I truly mean it because it's just a treat to hang out with you, period, man. So I'm looking forward to this.
Cool, cool. Thanks. Appreciate your time. And this doesn't have to go in any particular order or any kind of follow any kind of script, but any of you guys who know Alan, this is a big believer in massaging your arm and opening up your arm and throwing for distance when applicable, listening to your arm, and it's just a big believer in throwing the 5 ounce baseball, which is something that I believe in very, very strongly. I think we can throw plyo balls, we can throw weighted balls. There's a time and a place for all those things, but the game is a 5 ounce baseball game, and that's why I wanted to bring Alan on here and just talk about some concepts, some footwork, um, how to listen to your arm, what that even means, and just kind of take it from there. So, any kind of opening thoughts for you, Alan, and like where you at in the state of the game today, and where is throwing program, and where is long toss right now for you?
Yeah, I'd say number one, I'm very encouraged by the state of the game compared, as you know, to 10, 15 years ago, even when, it just felt like there was this real fight for individuality, athleticism, and long toss. Again, I've always felt like not every high school, college, professional team has to force people to long toss. It's just if you're a long toss athlete and you enjoy it and you get a lot out of it, it should always be honored and allowed and encouraged for that particular player. And so I feel like nowadays long toss is so much more appreciated. It's so much more mainstream. And I just feel like a lot of those battles are not really there anymore. It still may come up here and there, but I think yeah, I'm just, I think to answer your question, I'm encouraged. And I think I would just say one other thing as an opening, which there are a lot of great things to do as far as arm health, arm care, arm development. But one thing I try to always talk about is that throwing is still king. And there's just is no substitute for good old fashioned throwing. And as you know, with us, we smartly, but we encourage a lot of throwing, and so anyway, I think that would be a lot of smart throwing, but we encourage it. So I think we'll open with that.
Yeah, cool. So, what is a lot of throwing to you? I know what it means to me. What is a lot?
Yeah, I think it starts by listening to your arm, as you well know at the opening. But we just feel strongly that the human body, the arm, is so resilient, and it's so supportive that if we do things right and we build this thing slowly and gradually, it's just unbelievable how much how healthy and happy the arm will get. So a lot of throwing for us, especially in the off season, it's a progression, but at some point you're building up to 6, 7 days of throwing. Even on the seventh day, even where you might take it off, off for us could still mean, go out to 90, 120 feet. If you're a younger kid, maybe that's 60 to 80 feet. But a line I'll steal from Randy Sullivan that I just love so much is that the body is made to move. And it's getting a little heavy, but you can talk about concepts like regeneration versus degeneration. And, our body is a live, breathing organism that wants to be fed. And so, yeah, to what degree is too much throwing is always something you have to balance. But I always think about like how do BP pitchers make 400 throws a day, 6 days a week for 40 years and not break down? And of course, someone could say, well, they're not throwing with full intent, they're not throwing breaking balls, and that's fair. But we still have to ask the question, yeah, but they're making 400 throws a day, 6 days a week for 40 years. That tells us how resilient the arm can be. And I'll say one last thing about this, which is it's also that feeling of when the arm's in motion, it likes to stay in motion, like I think most things in life. So yeah, we can dig a little deeper into what too much throwing is, but I think that people need to think more in terms of erring on the side of throwing more versus less, and obviously we can talk more about what more means.
Yeah, that's you're speaking definitely speaking my language at this point. Part of our program at Pitch IQ is definitely that verbatim. It's like don't be afraid to throw more. Um, if you have soreness, kind of throw through your soreness, maybe not so much around. Let's not try to be evasive. And then what goes along with that is being able to balance, pain from injury, soreness from pain. And there's different levels of this whole thing. But until you go out, like just because your arm's bugging you and you're reaching for your iPhone, okay, I feel it, but that doesn't mean you just bang the throwing for the day. I think the ultimate arbiter is let's go out and test it a little bit. Let's dip our toe in the water and kind of see where we're at for the day before we jump to a conclusion of like, oh yeah, I'm not long tossing today because I just reached for my iPhone and my arm's barking. Um, where do you kind of feel? What do you feel about that? Like taking it for a walk, seeing where we're at, and then if you have to adjust for the day, you adjust for the day.
Well, now you're talking my language. Take it for a walk. You reminded me of one of my favorite stories ever. My partner, Jim Voucher, who I know you know, we were teammates at Northridge. We were long toss partners at Northridge. It's hard to imagine, but like 38 years ago, I can't even believe that. It's not possible. But um, we still we threw long toss clinics, as you know. I mean, I remember doing a clinic, a demo with you at San Diego State, and you know, we just no, maybe you came up here, but anyway, we weren't in great shape at some point, but we were still doing clinics, and we still wanted to put on a good show, and we stayed in decent shape. But there might be periods of time, 3 weeks, 2 months, maybe, where we didn't really throw much, and we knew that we needed to get some throwing in, and so we'd go out some days where we again didn't have much of a base, and we'd get out and we'd be at 90 feet or so, and we both maybe didn't feel as good. And I remember one particular day where he wasn't, like you said, he might have been a little sore, a little off, but he wasn't hurt. And we just sort of milked it. We probably stayed at 90 feet for 20 minutes or whatever it was, like a BP pitcher.
Right.
And before you knew it, now we weren't out to 300 feet like we were in the old days, but we might have gotten 220, 240, but we probably threw for an hour. And I don't want anybody freaking out like an hour, but you know what I mean by an hour. It's just that we literally were taking our arm for a walk. We were literally just throwing with what we would call low intent massage throws. And like a BP pitcher, you just get into that feeling where it's almost like the more you throw at that pace and that feel, the better the arm feels. And that's something, by the way, I have experienced my whole life, and I can't project that onto everybody. But people like you that I've spoken to with who tend to have rubber arms, what a shock, or tend to like to throw a lot, what a shock, they tend to feel the same thing, which is that when they get into a throwing situation where they're not max efforting or throwing a high intent pen for, a lot of pitches, they get into that comfort zone where they feel like they can throw all day. And I think there's something to be said about that, where you learn how to throw in a manner where you're conditioning and you're building endurance and volume, but you're doing it in a really smart way where the arm is actually getting happier and healthier because of it. And oh, by the way, you recover better the next day because of it, not sore because you threw a lot. And you get into what we call a positive cycle. Your arm actually starts building the volume, feeling better, and able to respond faster because of it. So, yeah, the whole soreness versus pain thing, it's very tricky, but we have a simple rule of thumb: massage it, and as long as the soreness doesn't get worse or turn into pain, give it a chance, as you said. And usually, as we both know, almost always you will tend to throw through it. If at any point it starts to go backward the other way and it starts to feel more of an acute pain or something obvious, then we know just shut it down. But I love what you said, Eric, because we've lived this for so long that if you just breathe and slow down and stay simple and massage it, it seems like almost always it works itself out.
It's interesting you said the breath thing. I know that's something you're really into, and as am I, trying to get those mental reps in simultaneously with the physical reps. And kind of where are you at with that these days in terms of, somebody had this concept years ago, and I kind of ripped them off a little bit. Everybody kind of rips each other off in baseball, repackages, right? And I forget who it is. The 3 for 1 reps. It was like think about it, do it, and then evaluate it. And that's kind of how we package up that whole kind of like game psychology within throwing program. Um, I like to teach a kind of like an in through the nose and an out through the nose, and kind of there's certain kind of calming breaths. There's certain upregulation breaths. There's different ways of doing things. Um, what are you teaching these days?
It's funny, Eric. You make me think back, and I don't have regrets per se, but thinking back, I wish we really talked because our philosophy, as you know, I mean, I started in the mental game. I mean, I wrote a book in 1990 to 1994 about strictly the mental game and life. And so, yes, we did a lot of yoga with the players. We did a lot of meditation with the players. So, yeah, we definitely made that a essential part of our teaching. But I think having a little more awareness, maybe talking a little bit more about the awareness when you're actually throwing, is something we didn't really talk a lot about, although we did always talk about symbolisms that I felt like were very meditative, like listen to your arm, be
Right.
intimate with your arm and body, throw with freedom, massage the arm, which are all symbolic of a state of mind, of course, that we want them to be relaxed, free, massage, which is another reason I love long toss, is because you're getting a lot of incredible mental reps and development in a state you want to be in when you're between the lines and competing, which is actually drama. We don't really even want to talk about that. We just talked about your process. But yes, to your point, it's a great point. And I would say just a simple rule of thumb is just to be in tune with your breathing. When you're throwing, I mean, ultimately, if you're in the zone, so to speak, or you're in a great flow, it's happening anyway. So you don't really have to do anything. But it's great to have like as an anchor, or what we like to use the word default. It's great to have it in your back pocket, like so you know that maybe if you came from a challenging test or exam, or there's a big game tonight, which again is drama. Um, and maybe there is a little tension, you're a little stressed. It's great to combo your throwing an awareness to breathe, and so maybe just to put a bow on it, as I'd say, just to be aware, like you want to be aware of your arm being loose and relaxed and your body being in sync and you're feeling balanced and feeling athletic. The same way you want to feel that experience when you're throwing, which becomes hopefully very unconscious. You want to be in tune with your breathing, or at least have it as a tool to integrate with your throwing.
Yeah, the one thing that was always challenging for me as a player, and even to teach it now, is to how are you? How do you become aware of it? Like, so you're in the zone, you're dominating for 3 4 innings, whack, double off the fence. Now you're kind of like in shock mode. So now you immediately kind of go into fight or flight. So how do you remember to like, oh yeah, I have an anchor. I have this breathing tool because so often we're just like, all right, now I'm in a jam here. I gotta raise my level of play, and we kind of like forget our training almost. And so like so in other words, it's like you can't do yoga when you're on the mound. It's you can't you can do it in between innings, but you almost kind of want to have a little decompress moment there in between innings. But when it's really really important, what do you teach guys? Like, how do you remember your anger? How do you remember your training? Everybody says remember your trainer. Navy SEALs, remember your training, training. And then shit hits the fan. Next thing you know, it's like, what do we do? Like, what is the exact steps to take to kind of get back into the zone, into that flow, into that just do type of moment?
Well, boy, if you wanted to throw me a layup for a direction to go today, you just did it because
You're welcome.
thank you. I have been talking much more about mental game, life stuff, life skills than anything the last year. And to answer your question, you said you had a lot of the answers in your question and statement. You talked a lot about training and training and training and training. Well, we do a ton of physical preparation. So we have a place to default to quote unquote anchor to, because we've become it, right?
Yep.
Not that our mechanics are always perfect. I don't even want to really necessarily talk about that, but it's not that we're not always executing our pitches perfectly, but we have a ton of history to default to, of course, especially the older you get in the game. But then I would ask the question to anybody, well, you want to have awareness to come back to a certain state. Well, my question would be, well, what have you done practice-wise away from the field, like ground balls, fly balls, BP, bullpens, lifting, running, sleep, nutrition, on and on and on. Like what kinds of things have you invested in off the field? Similar, not a tiny bit here and there. So just as a simple example, if you and I met every day for 20 minutes and all we did is some form of meditation where let's say we got really better skill wise, like hopefully any other practice you do. So we started getting better at getting clearer, quieter, more present, less distracted. We started developing an awareness of thoughts coming in the mind, and we're getting better at being neutral to them and not going into some drama, the last pitch, the next pitch, the next game. And we did that every day for a month. Just imagine that. 20 minutes every day for a month, and all we did is focus on getting quiet, breathing, relaxing, just like a great long toss every day. And you're like, wow, after a month, I'm starting to feel like this skill development where I'm aware not only in the meditation of being quieter and more relaxed, and that's becoming me, but I'm noticing through the day, I'm just way more in tune with my breathing. I notice when someone cut me off, I'm being more neutral to it. I notice when someone starts talking about the big game next weekend that I'm just not even that interested in going into that anymore because I feel so much better from my meditations when I'm just being quiet and neutral to my thinking about the future and past. And so you can see where I'm going. Well, all of a sudden we do that for a month. Well, day 31, now you're in a game. Well, let's compare that guy, day 31 in the game of 20 minutes a day of meditation, where we'd like to think your acumen is getting better and better and better at these skills, versus the guy that didn't do it. Now, he's not a better or worse person. Like I always tell people, I'll love you the same whether you did the 30 days of meditation or not. But let's just look at this practically now and just say, well, or logically, like do the math. Like, and so, yeah, of course, I think it makes sense to anybody to say, oh, all of a sudden that guy or gal on the mound on day 31, I, I like that person's chances a lot more if
Yep.
they're rolling through 4 innings and then they give up a blooper and a swinging bunt. and all of a sudden it's first and second, nobody out. I like their ability to be aware, to default back to their process, back to their meditation, so to speak. And one other last thing I'd say is this: every athlete we work with, we build a process. Like for me, pitching would be breathe, focal point, attack, for instance. So we have an anchor in place on top of the meditation practice to, to really do more of the fundamental or the root work with the person. But we also want them to have a deep connection with their process. And then the last thing I'll say is this: you use the word which I love, and I use this all the time now, which is awareness. Well, part of the awareness comes, of course, from starting to meditate every day. Part of the awareness comes from knowing you have this process in place. And then here's the last part: awareness will tend to breed awareness. So the more
Right.
you're meditating and the more you're aware of your process, and then the more you're meditating and the more you're aware of and all of a sudden you're like, and I'll say, and sorry, no, I just cut you off, but one last comment is, I get this from Dr. Shauna Shapiro, which I've done a lot of work with her, and she's amazing. And she said a long time ago to me in one of our workshops, you become what you practice. And that really affected me. Not that I wasn't already bought into what we're talking about, but it just all of a sudden clarified this even more, like to the simple, like you become what you practice. You want to be clearer, quieter, default to your process faster on the mound, become your process on the mound, become your meditation on the mound. Well, practice. Have a practice. So your question or your comment earlier about training, 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 and that's the answer.
That is the answer. Yeah. Yeah. A couple things there that now you got me going here. I appreciate that. Um, the it's kind of like the mental game, and it's so hard to impart this on young kids, but like the mental game is just like the physical game in that if you go to the gym, it's going to take you a year to get bigger and stronger. If you take a cup of ice and you put it in the freezer, it takes a half an hour. Like these things just they're not it's just not magic. There's a process to the whole thing. And the game psychology, the game awareness, the game warfare that I kind of call it like game, like game warfare. Um, it takes an investment on the front end in order to see on day 31 you're in a better spot than you were on day one. I'd rather have the guy the 31st day than the first day, personally. You said something so awesome. You said, and this is going into my earlier question about like what do we do actually on the mound, and it sounded like your process was breathe, focal point, attack. And there it is. To me, like there it is. Finally, somebody was able to answer my question. I've been asking this question with the Padres, with for years, with everybody I talk to, in the PD den, wherever. Any pitching coach I get a hold of, any kind of pitcher I get a hold of, it's like, hey, what do everybody talks about like breathing. I'm like, well, what is the practical application when you're actually on the mound, when you look down and you put your foot in the hole, in the rubber, and you come up and you get your sign? Now I'm talking about now. Now's the clock just started. I have 8 seconds when it all boils down. The last year of squats, deadlifts, long toss, breathing, yoga, nutrition, sleep, it all comes down to this. And then from there, that 8 seconds, what do I do in that 8 seconds? Because it all boils down to what do I do from here to there? Okay, when I'm here, I'm gonna go over to this scene right here. When I'm ripping seams, okay, because it's all about ripping a seam. That is like a half a second less, like a 2 thousandths of a second, where it's boom to boom. All of that work, it all boils down to can you perform, and the performance is right there. So I guess my long-winded question is, can you kind of like dive in a little bit more about about breathe and what that looks like, and I'll tell you what I think it looks like. Focal point, and then I'll tell you, and then attack. So I hear that I'm your student, I'm your pitcher, I'm doing your program. I'm thinking to myself because it's going to mean something different to everybody. I'm thinking, all right, Alan wants me to take a breath, so I'm immediately going to go, and I try to coach guys out of that. I want to have a non-demonstrative breath. I want to go in through the nose, out through the nose. I don't want to tell the hitter anything. I want to seem relaxed, seem confident, and I'm going to do that through my nose. It's a slower inhale and a slower exhale because it's kind of like parasympathetic. Oh my god, everything's going crazy. I'm just going to go. Then I'm going to pick up my target, focal point, and then I'm going to attack the target. I'm not worried so much about the product or the result. I'm worried. I'm trying to control my process, and my process is attack, and then wherever the ball wants to go, the ball's going to go, and then I'm going to evaluate it at that point. So that's what that your coaching. That's what that meant to me. Is that what you're trying to convey, or different different kind of coloring to that, or something completely different?
In a nutshell, if you were my student, so to speak, and you came to me and you said, Alan, I want to work on my mental approach. First, we talk about meditation and break that down and give you a practice. So that's the foundation. Two is what I do, which you're going to love, is everybody's process, of course, is different. So I give it my process. If I had to go out and pitch today, or I got to go out and pitch today, um, that would be my process. From I pitched till I was basically 48, so I had a lot of years to work on it and fine tune it. But yeah, I just know right now that those would be my three keys. I want to be Bruce Lee 10th degree black belt at those three keys. Like, I don't want to know what country I'm in. I don't want to know if it's a practice game or a real game. I don't know anything. Those are all variables or what we call drama. I want to be Bruce Lee 10th degree black belt at breathing, having a focal point, and attacking. And we'll talk in a second about the breath too. That was a very key piece you added to that I want to address too. But this is a part you're going to so appreciate. So when I talk to an athlete, I say, well, when you're on the mound or you're in the batter's box, by the way, for if there's anybody that's a two-way player out there,
Yeah.
um, breathe, see the ball well, hit it hard is my process as a hitter. I can tell you my process on a 4-foot putt. So I always have it. So the point is this: it's individual. An Alaska player, we'll do it with a pitcher, and I'll say, just tell me three things that if you did these three things every single time, and this is the only thing that was vibing through your system for 3 hours or a 40 pitch pen, these are the only messages you were getting from your brain, if you were getting any messages at all. This is all you could feel was three things, three experiences. What would they be? And usually with pitchers, there's usually some type of intention, of a direction. There's usually some form of attacking or conviction or commitment, as we know from pitching. Um, and then a lot of people nowadays, because of meditation being mainstream and mindfulness and apps, breathing is of course a big deal. Um, but I've had players, they'll use a mechanical cue sometimes, say, hit my balance point, front side in. It's usually not mechanical, ironically. It's usually more of a feel thing, um, or an intent thing. So back to your question. So I would say to you, Eric, go back to the best game of your life, or just think about being on the mound right now, and just think about if I did A, B, and C. It could be anything. It could be clicking your heels three times. But if you just say to me, Alan, if I did A, B, and C, and that's all that was firing out of my mind or unconsciously for a 40 pitch pen or a 100 pitch game, I will absolutely make the best pitches of my life. Now, I can't control the outcome, as you said, depending upon what kind of shape I'm in or how good I'm at pitching, is a factor. But pound for pound, you would just say, look, based on who I am, where I'm at in the game, how much practice I've put into this physically, I will be the best version of myself, hands down. There is zero doubt if I did A, B, and C. So that's sort of the long-winded piece I do up front for a few minutes to give them clarity. I'll give them an example if they need. But here's the cool thing. I've done this a long time, and it's unbelievable how quickly players know their three things. And maybe they'll figure out a new one the next day they pen or something, and they can tweak the process, of course, but it's pretty uncanny how quickly they know sort of in their gut, like, man, if I just kind of did A, B, and C, I'll execute the best pitch of my life to the best of my ability. So I'll do that with you now, and it'll be cool to see what you come up with. So I'd say, Eric, tell me three things, and you can change this tomorrow if you want to tweak it. But just for today, three. It could be two, by the way, and it could be four. Three seems to be the sweet spot with people, but it doesn't matter. It could be one. You could just say attack, and that does it for you. So I'm going to be quiet now. Sorry. Tell me three things, or four, or two, and you just said, Alan, if I did X, Y, and Z and A, I'm going to be the best version of myself. So fire away.
So I'm going to go back to when I was a player,
Yep.
and
Great.
I used to write the word attack in my glove. I mean, in my hat. And
Beautiful.
although we didn't talk about the breath in the late '90s, early 2000s, unfortunately, but that's where we were. Even though breathing is as old as man, which is funny, and you're dead in 3 minutes without taking a breath. So it makes no sense to me, but that's where we were. And so, but what I would do is I would try to amp myself up in order to get into attack mode. So my breath, it actually ended up without knowing what I was doing. I was just like, it was like getting under a big bench press and you got to get pumped in order to throw 95. So I'm East Coast, like high intent guy getting yelled at, blah, blah, blah. So that worked for me. So I would be like, get my sign, get pissed, breath, attack. Now those are my three things. So it's almost identical to yours. There's a focal point, there's a breath, and then there's the exact same terminology, the attack terminology. So that was my process. And then as I got later in my career, when I couldn't throw 95 in every pitch, I would only do that on like the really important pitches. The rest of the time, I was trying to get into a flow state, and I was just like I was like, relax, attack at the last second. So it was more like a get your sign, there's your focal point, relax as I'm coming set. And then instead of attack, 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 it was more like flow, 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 rip or attack, you know? So those are kind of like the two iterations of, and it's funny when I do throwing program with another coach like Trevor Hoffman a couple of years ago. Him and I were doing, and we started competing against each other. I was like, damn, he's still really good at this. He's a Hall of Fame pitcher. He was like pounding me in the chest, and I'm like, I'm not losing. Like, there's no way you could see. He was like, I'm not losing to him. I'm not losing to him. And it just became like this. Okay, and it was like a default right back into the process. It was like, relax, come back, attack the ball, relax, pick up your target, attack the ball. So it became so second nature that even after having not pitched for 5 years at that time, now it's been 12 years since I've pitched in a game. Um, when I throw a BP, it's the same thing. Because if I let up on the gas pedal at all, I'm going to start hooking it. I'm going to get the yips, blah blah blah. So for me, I've always, to boil it down to one word, would be rip, attack, accelerate through the baseball, and that tells me everything I need to know, because I'll make an aggressive mistake rather than making a passive mistake. And to me, passive mistakes are anathema, and aggressive mistakes are where it's at. Like, I'd rather see a ball go sailing aggressively than tentatively off the ground. So that was where my mental state used to be, was, and now currently is when I'm throwing the baseball.
Okay, so to bring it to the present, it sounds like you'd say breath, have a focal point, and then have relaxation until I get out in front, and then let the aggression happen after the
That's
relaxation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's
Perfect. See how clear? Now you have a lot of experience compared to maybe a 16-year-old or a 19-year-old, but you have a lot of clarity, which is key because you now know, like, hey, Alan, I know it. It's like the answers to the test. I
because I
know.
failed so many times. I know what doesn't work. It's not so much I know what works. I know what doesn't work. So I avoid that. You know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I think by a process of elimination, we can say that you know what does work, right?
Right.
Because we kind of have, I don't say we have to, but that's what we're ultimately doing is we're saying, well, that is the ultimate question. What are the three things that are going to lead to you executing the best pitch of your life right now. And so I'd say if you agree that it's breath, awareness of a focal point, relaxation until the very end, and then I'm going to be aggressive. Unless, so that's that. So this is what I do. It's really beautiful. We massage this until the person's super clear. And again, they may figure something out tomorrow or a week from now. But generally, when we massage it, so I want to just finish this last part again and just double check. Do you? This is what I do with the players. Do you want to add anything or subtract anything? To breath, focal point, relaxation until the moment of truth, and then acceleration or attack. Do you want to add anything or
No,
change anything to
that
that?
that probably would work for me. Yeah.
Okay, so see what I do is I do this with the players. It's beautiful, and then I say, okay, so now we're in agreement, at least until we maybe change this or adapt it. That if I do these three things, there's zero doubt in my mind I will make the best pitch of my life right now, forever. So you got to be able to. I'm not saying you know for sure, but I asked them, can you say definitively yes to that?
I'm pretty sure that I'm going to execute a good pitch. And if I don't, I don't care. But I'm pretty sure if I go through those steps, that process for me, I'm going to make a competitive pitch. Yeah.
That's all. 100%. 100% that you're going to execute your plan. No, that this is not necessarily about whether the pitch is perfect or not. This is about you saying if I do A right, it's the 100% best possibility for the best outcome for B.
100%. If I follow that process, I can't do anything more in order to produce what will hopefully be a good result.
Great. See what we did? We have your process.
Right.
So your process is almost identical to mine. It's breathing, focal point, which I like the word, and intention, which I stole from Butch Thompson a long time ago.
Hmm.
Breath, intention, sorry, breath, focal point, which is the intention, and then the commitment, which is the attack. And it's funny, before we go to the next step, when I used to be out on the field with players doing bullpens, I used to have a saying that I think you're gonna love because you just described it, which is let your body be the calm and your arm be the storm. Because as we both know, a lot of times pitchers get aggressive and try hard and get maybe tighter because they're the storm in their body, and then we know what happens as a result.
Let your
Versus,
body be the calm and your arm be the storm.
and you could take it one step further with what you said. You can almost just say, let your everything be the calm, and then let that 6 inches, so to speak, or the wrist, even though we still obviously want that calm too, but let that be the storm.
Yeah.
But the point is to get the symbolism in the body of like, hey, chill. It's like relax, 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 explode,
Yeah.
relax.
Like it's for like relax, 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 and then like this last digit, just violence right there. Boom! That last knuckle, violent down through the baseball. Rip it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I'm on it.
What was that?
I'm on it.
Yeah, yeah. So just play with that one, calm, because everybody can relate to the calm before the storm, and if you can get that in your body. So, okay, so now we're almost there. So now we've got your process. You've agreed to it. It's not my process. You said, "Hey, Alan, these are my three things, 100%, unless I change it." You've agreed that you're in a position to make the best pitch of your life forever, by the way, not this next pitch.
Right.
You're telling me this is forever. And I agree, because for me, it's forever. Breathe, focal point, attack, unless I adjust it. Now it's a relief to my mind. There's nothing else to think about. I got my three things in place. Now here's the cool part. I call these three pieces constants. And the reason I love the word constants is because by knowing your three constants, everything else for the rest of your life is a variable. And variables is what I call drama or distractions or future or past or consequences or results or batting average or ERA. Doesn't matter. You can put it with the weather, on the road, at home, practice game, real game, conference game, non-conference game, playoff game, in-season game. Doesn't matter anymore. They're all variables. There's a million interchangeable variables. And as you know, that part you were talking about earlier when you're rolling for 4 innings and then things go, not in your favor, now all of a sudden there's a lot of potential drama. There's a lot of variables. Or there's just a lot of variables before the game, whatever. But now you're like, oh, this is so cool. Like this is so relaxing. I have 3 things I have to dominate that I've already agreed to are the keys to me making the best pitch of my life.
And
So the game,
you've practiced it over and over and over again. I call it home base. It's like throwing program is your home base. No matter what's going on in your life, your girlfriend dumped you, your parents are getting divorced, your coach hates you, think, whatever, anything. But I got throwing program today, and I can go work on that 3-step process, and I can go home every day. Like a dog is waiting for its owner to come home and let it out of its cage so it can go run in the park for 20 minutes. And the owner's always coming home, unless it's a no throw day for you. But
I'm going to steal. That's what I love about conversations like this is that I'm going to get better. And that's many, many things that are going to make me better. There's one of them. I love that. I've never used that term.
yeah, it's home base.
Love the idea of coming home. Your process is home, and I'm going to be stealing that, buddy, and I will give you credit. But now, but here's but here's the beauty of it now, because you asked earlier that burning question about, yeah, breathing is vital. It's great, and it's good that we already are talking about that. But what else? What else? Like what? And now to know that you have these 3 anchors, this home base, and this home base is actually fueling your intrinsic meaning as an athlete, as a person, because they're yours. And you're saying, this is what helps me. My partner, I love Jim. He has the greatest line. We used to do these clinics, and he would talk about whether it was throwing a long toss or after a meditation. He had this line. It feels good to feel good. I think it was really after our great epic long toss session. He goes, my arm feels amazing all the time. It feels good to feel good. And
Oh,
and to me, that's symbolic of what we're talking about, that there's just this relief, this good feeling of like, wow, I have my process, it's home, and now I know that if anything else comes up in my mind, it's drama, it's a distraction. And what a relief. And so going forward now, you could I just did a one of the college programs I had a group session with yesterday, and this is what we did. We had the players write down their process if they're a pitcher, and their process is as if they were a hitter, the hitters, and then we define it all. And I have their process now. They know they have their constants, they have their home base. See how much I'm stealing it already? And now all of a sudden, they're aware, whether they're perfect at it or not, they are now aware of their home base. And also, now they know if they're feeling stress or tension or something, there's a very good chance that they've left their constants, whether it's the World Series or a game of over the line. There's an
yeah.
awareness now like, wait, I'm not free. I'm not quiet. I'm not calm. I'm not loose. I'm not natural. Why? Oh, I've left my constants. So this system, so to speak, I'm not saying it's easy to implement because it's easy, it's very easy in theory, but as you know, it takes practice and it takes awareness. But I love this system because it is so simple in theory. And everybody I've talked to about this probably started doing this about 10 years ago, this exact specific system. I got to tell you, Eric, man, it's almost mind blowing to me that like the better word is inspiring. It's inspiring and encouraging to me when I go over this with players, how quickly they're like, what a relief. Like it makes so much sense. It's so straightforward. Yeah, I got to work on this. Yes, I may have to change my default because my mind is used to thinking about my ERA or my batting average or who's in the stands, right? That's the drama. And that's something that we just maybe get good at, for better or for worse. We just start practicing that from a young age. But now I'm aware that I don't want to default to that drama anymore. I don't want to default to the fact of someone made an error behind me that I'm mad about it, or there's someone getting loose in the bullpen right now. It doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is I had this talk with Alan or Eric, and now I know that if I'm Bruce Lee 10th degree black belt, that breathing, having a good focal point, and attacking it, it's the best I can be. It's like game over. It's like, okay, now I just gotta really be vigilant about that and work on that. And by the way, that's also where meditation is such a huge piece to this, because you're not only getting the great benefits for that meditation offer, but meditation is, to use your term again, is bringing you home.
Yeah.
Maybe not exactly home to your process on the field, but home to your process in life in general, and home to a sense of awareness. That is what we're trying to channel anyway in life and on the field. So that was really back to that point about how do we start with an athlete. And to me, I feel like you can cut to the chase in the quote unquote mental game, and really this is applicable, of course, to life.